Hi there, welcome back. You're watching Sky News Today. Now, there has been much praise for England's women footballers this week, as you can imagine. But as the Premier League season approaches very soon, it's clear that the men's game still has big problems. More than 2 million tweets directed at top footballers of the first half of last year have been analysed in a new report. And it found the overwhelming majority were positive, but a dozen players received half of all abusive tweets, 8 of them from the same team. Well, with us now is the former professional footballer Kevin George, who played for West Ham. He now provides mental health training for all players. There you are. Glad I'm looking in the right camera. Thanks so much for joining us here on Sky News. What do you make of that statistic? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is, but I'm not surprised. Players have always been put in a position to get criticised, and strangely enough, by former players and presenters, which I've never really understood, to be honest.
And we have to be careful because, of course, we're live on TV, so we have to be careful what we say in terms of what is being tweeted or what is being put out there on social media. But why do you think it's just a few players or a few clubs getting the vast majority of the abuse? And what would it be about?
It depends on who's the target. So if you look at players over the recent months, whether it be Harry Maguire or Jack Grealish or, say, Jesse Lingard, when you look at sports channels, whether it be TV and social media, it's all about pushing out content. So they will pick out one issue and they would run with it, and it fuels the abuse. So even though we're talking about the millions of people that are tweeting this abuse or posting this abuse on social media, it's actually being fueled by the, in a way, so-called professionals. So if you look at, say, Jesse Lingard, his attitude and approach to football, he came through at Manchester United, one of the smallest players, technically not a question, but physically, yes. So he had a big fight to kind of get through at Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Plays for England, had a dip in form because mum had depression, dad had cancer. He became a carer of his 2 younger siblings, and he had his 1-year-old daughter. Then he goes on loan to West Ham in the most demanding league in the world after not playing, and gets 9 goals in 10 games from midfield. Objectively, there's no question, right? All of a sudden, things are popping up in conversations when it comes to Jesse Lingard with regards to, he should have gone on loan, when the club decides whether he goes on loan or not, depending on the move, or he's more interested in TikTok. And what happens with these conversations, which really and truly are unjust and unfair, they fuel the fans, because the fans are now, or the people who are posting this abuse, because they will think, oh, well, that's a former player, or, oh, that's a presenter. These are the professionals. And when you dissect what these professionals are saying, it's based on mind reads and assumptions. And so when we look at, okay, yes, these people are writing the post, but where is this information coming from? And I believe there should be more accountability to the people who are speaking about these players. And actually, there should be a restriction on platforms in terms of how many times you can post about them. Because I was thinking to myself the other day, if I was Jesse Lingard, every day there would have been posts about him, and probably that would have been inspiring comments left, right and centre for the last 2 weeks, just because he chose to move to Nottingham Forest.
And of course, abusive and racist abuse should not be tolerated at all. But if it's comments about performance on the pitch, some people would say, it's a highly pressurised environment. It's a real privilege to play football at this level. Is this not part of the territory? Does this not come with the job?
No, it doesn't. Well, it does come with a job, but it shouldn't. And I think when you look at the comments that are made about certain players, if you even look at, say, race, Pogba used to get criticised for having highlights in his hair, and David Beckham, who played for the same team, used to change his hair consistently. So, but no one gets challenged, and I think that's one of the biggest issues as well. So it's not necessarily direct. Sometimes it's indirect. But again, it's unfortunately when we look at the people making these comments, and I know we're talking about the people, the actual public who are posting this stuff. But again, I think if the example's set at the top, I believe it will filter down to the bottom.
I know social media's got an awful lot to play for to be part of it. I'm sure it wasn't like that when you were a professional footballer, because social media wasn't kind of as powerful and certainly as important as it is now. So what is your advice? I know that you now work on psychology of football and coaching footballers. What do you say to them to try and ignore this abuse?
I know it sounds very basic, but if I'm being honest, I'd say don't read the comments. There's not much you can do. And when I work with the players, it's more to do with their day-to-day experience of being a footballer. With regards to the social media and just the overall experience, I work with staff because I believe that players should be coached on how to manage social media. A lot of the focus is based on what they should put out. So this is why you get a lot of the robotic responses like, it's a shame we lost, we go again, and happy with the result. But I think players should be, as soon as they go full time, should be told, look, this is potentially what you're going to experience. These are the kind of ways you can protect yourself, not in terms of only what you write, but also just how you conduct yourself in your life as well, just to avoid these situations that are flaring up. But again, it's always going to come back to the players can do all of this, but if they're going to have consistent conversations about them, then it's going to fuel fans anyway. And those players will be at home, relaxing, doing the right things, and all of a sudden their notifications are going to go through the roof. And even when there isn't any issues, their anxiety is going to spike because they're going to be thinking, what now?
Kevin, whilst I've got you, just want to ask you a quick question, if you don't mind, on a breaking news story here at Sky News regarding the Premier League deciding to not take the knee on a routine basis at the beginning of each match, but select significant moments to take the knee, of course, to highlight their unity against all forms of racism. Is that the right thing to do, would you say?
Yeah, because it's tokenistic. So I'm not for it. Look, I've delivered programs across the Premier League and Football League, and I'm aware of a lot of things that happen behind closed doors in football. And there are people in football that are more involved in the sport than me. And there's a lot of stuff that's happened and nothing gets dealt with. So when I see the knee, if I'm being honest, it's quite frustrating because there's a lot of issues that we talk about in a sport where everyone talks about character, leadership, aggression, fight for the club, do all of this stuff, and being very direct. And when it comes to racism, we say, oh, well, let's take the knee. So for me, the question becomes, awareness is there. What is action? And the knee is not action. And as I said, there are loads and loads of stuff that their jaw would drop, that happens behind the scenes that does not get dealt with, that people avoid conflict. They want to preserve relationships and do all this other stuff and go around the houses and do campaigns and wear T-shirts and the knee and all that stuff and put the badge on the sleeve. So I'm not for it because of what has it done. If I asked you what has taken the knee done, I'm sure you just say awareness, and awareness is very grey, and it doesn't lead to anything. So I'm all for anything that breeds action.
We'll leave it there, Kevin. Thank you so much, Kevin George, for joining us, and thank you for getting up so early, 5:30 in the morning in Jamaica. Now, that is dedication. Thank you.
No problem.